Hello, hello. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. Thanks for watching. Let me check in and make sure this is going through okay. All right. Say what's up to me if you're in the chat so I know everything's working okay. Hope everybody's doing well. All right, guys. So the topic. Oh, sorry, that just made me laugh, Daniel. Bite the hand that feeds. That's right. Well, if you notice, the title for today's video is CNN sucks, but it's in quotation marks. You see, that's how I protect myself. I'm just quoting what other people have said. I'm not saying CNN sucks. You know, make up your own mind. But yes, as you're alluding to, I do work for them. So maybe I should start this like a real journalist. Full disclosure, I am an employee of the bad guys. I work for Turner or Time Warner or whatever the company is today. I'm a contributor at SE Cup Unfiltered, which is on Headline News, which is the sister company to CNN. But again, like I said, it's in quotes. I'm just quoting what other people have said, and they've been saying it quite a bit. If you've watched any show on CNN over the last 24 hours, you've seen this is a major story, to the point that every single show has to cover it and talk about how dangerous it is. And basically what it all came from was Jim Acosta was at a Trump rally the day before yesterday, and he was trying to do a spot for CNN, and the crowd was going crazy chanting CNN sucks, CNN sucks. They were drowning him out. I think he couldn't even record his segment. And I don't know. My initial thoughts when I saw it was this is pretty goddamn hilarious. But of course that's, I don't know, to me just seems like the sane, reasonable response to seeing that. But if you're in the mainstream media, you saw it quite a bit differently, and this was dangerous and terrifying, and Trump was working up a crowd into a frenzy, and things could get violent and all this stuff. Now, but I should mention, by the way, that there was absolutely no violence. Jim Acosta wasn't punched, nothing was thrown at him, none of his people were assaulted, and I mean, I wasn't there, but this has been covered on every single show on CNN since it happened, and I think we can have a fair degree of certainty that if anything like that had happened, they would be letting us know. There was nothing that even seemed remotely violent about the situation. If you look at all the videotapes of it, it was like a bunch of middle-aged and older people chanting CNN sucks. It didn't seem like anyone was going to get violent anytime soon. There's one picture where there's like an 80-year-old woman approaching Jim Acosta, and somehow this is supposed to make us all like terrified that violence could break out at any minute. There was a baby with a CNN sucks onesie on. I mean, it was like hilarious and adorable. I don't quite get the freak out. But anyway, the argument that's being made by pretty much everybody in the mainstream media is that this Donald Trump calling CNN fake news and calling them the enemy of the people and a lot of the other stuff that he said, it creates an environment where violence is more likely. So if you keep saying that they suck and they're the enemy of the people, well, one of these days someone might do something violent to one of these journalists, and you're creating an environment where that's more likely. And I'll say this, okay? There is a kernel of truth to that argument. Like, okay, maybe it is true that if you keep talking about how terrible CNN is, it's more likely that someone will do something violent. Okay? I'll grant you that. It might increase the odds, although the odds don't seem particularly high at the moment. But there's somewhat of a fair argument to be made with that. But there's a few major problems with that argument, okay? So number one, the major problem with that argument is that then we can't criticize anyone. I mean, if you want to go down that path, then it's like, well, you can't criticize the media, you can't criticize the government, you can't criticize the police, can't criticize the military, can't criticize, public education. You can't, right? Because anytime you criticize someone, especially if they're doing something, very, very wrong, and they're doing something incredibly damaging, well, there might be some nut out there who's going to take matters into his own hands and be violent. So if you really take this argument to its logical conclusion, then we don't have the freedom to criticize anything, and I think anyone could recognize that that's a pretty big problem. We need to be able to criticize institutions or groups of people, particularly if they're really screwing up. So, while there might be a kernel of truth to that argument, I think I'd rather err on the side of having the freedom to criticize the media and the government and all other types of groups and individuals, for that matter. The other problem is that if you're gonna use that line of thinking, if you're going to say, well, if you criticize the media, if you say, CNN is fake news, then there might be some violence. Well, okay, but that doesn't only apply to CNN, which if you watch CNN, you would think it only applies to them, right? But wouldn't that also apply to, say, I don't know, calling the Trump administration a fascist regime, right? That might also lead to some people being violent, right? If you say Donald Trump is literally Hitler, or you compare ICE to the Gestapo, or whatever, the stuff that you see all over the mainstream media all the time, that could also have that effect. Now, by the way, I'm not saying I have no problem with any of it. Call all of it. Yeah, you know what? Donald Trump is kind of running a fascist regime. So is Barack Obama, so is George W. Bush, and pretty much everyone back to Woodrow Wilson. So, whatever, I don't have any problem with that at all. I'd much rather live in a world where we just have the freedom to criticize whoever we want to, and if somebody decides to be violent, well, then that's on them. That's their responsibility, and they should be prosecuted like they always are. Anyway, the thing that's really crazy about it is if you if you pay attention to, like, say, the, I don't know, for lack of a better term, the internet news, what CNN would probably call the fake news, and then Donald Trump took that and threw it back at them and calls them the fake news. But if you just watch, like, Facebook Live videos, or you watch any of the internet journalists, the idea that you're selling this Trump rally with a bunch of 60-year-old people, screaming CNN sucks, like, oh my God, this was a really dangerous, violent environment. I mean, have you looked around at what happens anytime there's a pro-Trump rally or a free speech rally, or basically anyone on the right wants to get together, and you see these Antifa guys coming around? I mean, they're getting, whopped over the head with bike locks and by college professors. And this is going on all over the country, and like this doesn't even get that much mainstream media attention. This is an actual violent situation. I mean, Jim Acosta, for as uncomfortable as he may feel at some Trump rally, just try being a college kid who wears a Make America Great Again hat and walking around. I'd much rather be a CNN reporter at a Trump rally than be in that situation. How many videos have you guys seen that have come out of people assaulting people in MAGA hats, throwing drinks on them, stealing their hat, punching them in the face? And then this goes all over the place. There's this violent environment, but CNN only seems to care when it's directed at them. And, it's a weird thing, because I'm over there in the building, like, a few times a week. And I'll say, like, I like a lot of people, like, on a personal level. I mean, I'm not even talking about the people who you see on TV. And I like a couple of them, too. Not all of them. But, I mean, there's, like, a whole bunch of people in that world. There's makeup artists and producers and staff and all these, just regular people. And, I almost, in some weird way, even though I'm not, my goal certainly isn't to help the mainstream media, but you almost want to go to them. It's like, hey, guys, you would be better off if you had, like, the tiniest little bit of introspection, like just the tiniest little bit. Like, maybe when you see all of these people furious, screaming CNN sucks, you should think to yourself, what is it that we're doing? Why is it that this huge portion of the American population hates us, hates our guts? What is it that we're doing? Why is it that they feel that way? Okay, maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're completely wrong and you're completely right. Spoiler alert, that's not true. But even if that was the case, it's like, okay, maybe think about how you can reach those people, right? Isn't your job supposed to be to represent them? You're supposed to represent the people. Isn't that the idea? I mean, this is a pretty huge portion of them. It's not a tiny portion. It was enough to get Trump 63 million votes or something in that neighborhood. So maybe you'd think to yourself, like, oh, maybe we need to come at this from a different angle. But no, of course, this is just evidence that they're wrong and you're under threat. And, Joe Rogan said once, my buddy Joe Rogan, who's, the internet boss, the podcasting legend, he said once, and this really, really stuck with me, and I'm pretty sure he was describing Occupy Wall Street, when he said this, but he said that Occupy Wall Street, they were like white blood cells, and the analogy is that he was like, white blood cells, they don't necessarily know exactly what a virus is. They don't necessarily have all of the answers to cure a virus. They're not necessarily informed about all this stuff, but they know that they see corruption and they rush. That's what they do. And I thought that, like, it really stuck out to me, and I just thought it was a very useful way to look at a lot of these different, like, protest kind of movements. So whether it's Occupy Wall Street or the Tea Party or Black Lives Matter or the Trump movement, it was just like a useful lens to see what's going on here. And what it ends up doing is it makes you a lot more sympathetic with a lot of the people. So you could look at Occupy Wall Street and say, like, oh, well, there's a bunch of socialists here and all their plans wouldn't work, and they, I heard kids saying ridiculous things down there, we should abolish money and all, kind of ridiculous plans. And if you look at it that way, you can start to have contempt for all of them, and it's like, oh, these kids don't know what they're doing. But if you look at it through the white blood cell lens, it just makes a lot more sense. And you go, look, they're responding to what they see as corruption. And you know what? They're right. There is a ton of corruption. I mean, come on. All these Wall Street bankers just made these ridiculous bets. They were in bed with government. They were making these crazy loans. Their executives are taking out these $100 million bonuses. And then when the mortgages all go bad, when all their bets go bad, they get bailed out by the government. I mean, who could possibly argue that isn't corrupt? So, okay, maybe all these kids don't have the answers, but you know what? They're right. At the core of the message, they're right. And same with the Tea Party. Or these guys are like, look, debt's getting out of control, government spending's out of control, this is nuts, this isn't what America was supposed to be about. And they're right. And you know what? The same thing goes for Black Lives Matter. Okay, sure, so there might be some craziness in there, but they're responding to, police brutality, to basically being occupied by a foreign military. And they're right. And you know what? Same thing goes for the Trump people. Like, really what they were responding to was like the establishment corruption, the corruption of this whole fucking system, and authoritarian political correctness. It's like, you know what? They want a guy who's just going to go up there and do this kind of stream of conscious riff and just say whatever the fuck he wants to. We don't care if we're offending anybody. Like, we're tired of this. We're tired of this whole system. And I think they have, like, a pretty fair point. And when you look at it like that, it changes how you see all these things. So the other big lie that CNN is telling, and a lot of the mainstream media is telling, is that Donald Trump created this hostility toward the mainstream media. And that's complete bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Donald Trump didn't create this. He capitalized on it. And that's a big difference. That's a really big, important difference. He didn't create it. He capitalized on it. If you remember back, I know this is like 85 years ago in the current political atmosphere, but in 2012, okay, so the last presidential election before Donald Trump won, in 2012, there was a moment at one of the debates. It was, what's the guy's name? King. John King? He was one of the CNN journalists. And he opened the debate by asking Newt Gingrich this salacious question about an expose they had just run, or ABC, I think, had just run, on his ex-wife, who was, like, giving all this dirt on him, basically that he cheated and he wanted to have an open marriage and stuff like that. And they opened the debate by asking Newt Gingrich about it. And Newt Gingrich just slammed the media. He slammed CNN and the media, and he was like, this is insane that you guys would open a presidential debate like this. He was like, this environment in the media is terrible. Just slammed him. And it got thunderous applause. Thunderous. It was the biggest moment of all of the debates in 2012. I mean, there was nothing, we got to praise the military, or Obama's terrible, or abortion's murder. None of that stuff got half. I mean, it was like a 3-minute long standing ovation that he got. They were just furious at the media. This was way before Donald Trump burst onto the political scene. Or if he did, he was like some fringe, actor. He wasn't like and no one was taking him seriously as a presidential candidate. And except maybe Trump himself. But this is what electrified the crowd, was bashing the media, bashing them, okay? So much like the entire Trump moment, it's not a dynamic that Donald Trump created. it's like Donald Trump's whole presidential campaign. It was like Donald Trump like picking up a pair of pocket aces and being like, okay, no one else wants to play these. Okay, I'll play them. These are pretty good cards. I'll play them. Like nobody else wants to talk about immigration. Okay, I'll play those pocket aces because the Republican base is furious about the current immigration policy, and none of the rest of you guys want to talk about that. Okay, I'll talk about it. They're furious at the media. None of you guys want to really go hard at them. Okay, I'll go hard at them. And that's it. But there's a big difference between saying that Donald Trump is playing these pocket aces and to say that Donald Trump created the idea that pocket aces are a good hand. It is a completely different thing. And if you look at it the wrong way, you're going to miss this whole thing. So I guess the question is, why? Why is that playing so well? Why do these people hate the mainstream media so much? Now, I don't know completely. I'm not saying like I have all the answers. I'm not a Trump supporter, and I'm not like a MAGA hat wearing, middle of the country, Trump guy. That's not who I am at all. As I said many times, I hate Donald Trump. I think he's not doing a good job. I just also hated Barack Obama and thought he was terrible too. That's, by the way, I wish there were more people like that. That's the best. Forget like politics or labels or anything like that. How about just I hate Trump and I hated Obama too? That cuts right to the core of it about as well as anything. But back to my question, why is this? Why do these people, why do they hate the mainstream media so much? Why is it when someone says you're fake news and you're the enemy of the people, why does that resonate so much with them? Well, I mean, I could guess. I could tell you why I have contempt for the mainstream media. But my personal view would be things like, oh, I don't know. I mean, you guys have been bashing Trump every single day of his presidency, except when he bombs the crap out of Syria, and then you all celebrate him. That's the only time he gets any accolades from the mainstream media, is if he's bombing a third world country. How fucking, how disgusting is that? But I don't really think that's what these guys are upset about. I think it's probably, I'll throw one guess out there. Maybe it's the fact that you guys were nothing but bootlickers for Barack Obama, and as soon as Trump came in, you became the adversarial press again. Maybe that's it. Why don't you go look at, why is Jim Acosta getting so much heat? Go on YouTube. They have these, I guess you're on YouTube already. Stay on YouTube. They have these hilarious compilations of the way he covered Obama compared to the way he covers Trump. It's like and by the way, this is why there's more anger at CNN than there is at MSNBC. Because with MSNBC, it's kind of like, yeah, you know what you're getting. Okay, that's that side. CNN is pretending to be the ones who are in the middle, or these honest journalists. Well, we're objective. We just call it like we see it. And this is why people hate Jim Acosta. Okay? It's like, there's lots of like pundits out there who's just like, oh, I'm a Democratic strategist, or I'm a left-wing pundit and I hate Trump. And people aren't as furious at that guy because it's like, well, we get where you're coming from. Jim Acosta puts himself out there like, I'm the White House correspondent. I'm the objective journalist covering the White House. And everybody knows, and everybody at CNN knows, he's not. He's an anti-Trump activist pretending to be an objective journalist. So maybe that's it. Maybe if there was like one, if CNN, they would do themselves some favors if they just had an ounce of introspection. Like if they were just like, okay, look, we shouldn't have been so kind to Obama. We should have been harder on him. They go, you know what? We really messed up when we had debate questions leaked to Hillary Clinton, and we were pretty much in the tank for her. That would probably help them win back a little bit of credibility. But don't tell them I said so. I'm not trying to give them any advice. I just want them to keep booking me. That's the important thing. All right. That's the video for today. Thanks for watching. I love you all. Goodbye.